I'm having an affair, she said. I'll be honest, at first, this brief statement didn't register in my mind. I heard the words clearly, but my brain either didn't want to or couldn't process them. She kept staring at me while I put another piece of the delicious marinated pork into my mouth. Did you hear what I said, Sal? I nodded, my mind, overwhelmed by the wonderful taste, slowly and reluctantly decoding her words. She repeated it for me again. I said I'm having an affair. I heard you, Arya. No need to repeat. I finally responded after swallowing the piece. She cut another piece of her dinner, speared it with her fork, and put it in her mouth, waiting for my reaction. By the way, the pork is delicious, I muttered. Is that all you have to say? I'm telling you I'm having a damn affair, and you comment on dinner? My God. Arya, could you please stop using that cursed word? I hissed through gritted teeth. As the situation became clearer, questions began to form in my mind. Who, when, where, and of course, why? Trying to organize them, I asked, how long? Hearing this, she winced slightly. At least that was a positive sign. It seemed she felt at least some embarrassment. A couple of months, she admitted reluctantly. So, a couple of months, I repeated after her, putting my fork down. I suppose that explains tonight's wonderful dinner. I take it this is it then, our last dinner together. After those words, she seemed to lose her confidence and started to get nervous. What do you mean, last dinner? Why would you say that? Well, let's see if I understood you correctly, I said, pushing my unfinished dinner plate aside and folding my hands on the table in front of me. So, you've had an affair, which lasted a few months. Tonight, we're here, just the two of us. You've cooked an excellent dinner, and now you've decided it's time for a confession. I've thought about it for a bit and made an assumption about what follows this little revelation. You're leaving me. She took a deep, heavy breath and then exhaled slowly and softly. I see. No, Selwyn, I'm not leaving you. Then why make this confession? Oh, I see. You must have found it so amusing that you just couldn't wait to tell me everything and rub it in my face, right? This time my words clearly agitated her, and Arya hesitated for a moment before responding, her voice slightly trembling. AC, actually, no. I was consumed by guilt, and I didn't want to keep lying to you. This whole situation, it was killing me. I hate it. You hate it, and it's killing you, but not enough to make you stop, I replied sarcastically. Sel, I had to tell you. It was eating me up inside, she groaned, almost with a look of martyrdom. So, who is this guy, the one who seduces other men's wives? I interrupted her. You don't know him. He's not from around here, she answered quickly. That's not an answer to my question. Who is he? I snapped again, gritting my teeth in frustration. A displeased grimace appeared on her face once more. She clearly didn't want to answer. We work together. He's a production manager in Tisdale, she replied reluctantly, leaning back in her chair and crossing her arms over her chest. I'm asking again, who is he? I repeated my question with an insistence that barely concealed my growing irritation. His name is Phil, she finally gave in. So, it's Phil, the production manager from Tisdale, and you've been seeing each other during your weekly visits, correct? Yes. And this has been going on for 2 months. So, what exactly were you hoping to achieve tonight, Arya? I didn't have any expectations, she muttered quietly, almost whispering. Now my wife looked frightened, with tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. I've heard people talk about how affairs are supposed to be exciting and fun, she continued. All the sneaking around, the lies. It's supposed to make everything more thrilling, but all it's brought me is sleepless nights and constant anxiety. As she made her confession, I noticed a clear sense of relief wash over her face and a light flush returning some color to her cheeks. All right, let's try another approach. What, in your opinion, was supposed to happen after I heard your confession? I asked, challenging her with a new question. I don't know, Sel, like I said. I didn't have any expectations, she shook her head. That's not true, And we both know it, I countered. Nobody drops a bomb like that without thinking about the possible consequences. 100 times over, if not more. We've had 17 years of what I thought was a happy marriage. You know me well enough to have certain expectations. She slowly nodded, and a long sigh of resignation escaped her tightly pressed lips. All right, fine. I expected you to explode, to yell at me, to tell me everything you thought of me. I expected curses and harsh words to rain down on me. And after that? Honestly, I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead. Well, if you didn't have any expectations, let's talk about what you were hoping would happen. Were you expecting my forgiveness? Did you think I would kick you out? Or that I would leave? What exactly were you hoping for? Forgiveness. She said thoughtfully, almost to herself. No, not exactly. Acceptance? No, that's not right either. Maybe, yes, perhaps understanding is the right word. I hope that you would see this as a starting point. A starting point? I growled, slamming my fist on the table. How, for the love of God, could this be a starting point? Damn it, Arya. This is the end, not the beginning. You've spent 17 years with me. Did you seriously think I'd say, "Don't worry, honey, we can work this out"? No, I didn't expect that, she repeated, grimacing slightly. You asked me what I hoped for, and I hoped you would listen to me and then understand what I'm trying to explain. This small point, this brief moment in time, could be the beginning of something remarkable for us. The anger that had been building deep inside me twisted my insides into knots, and the food I had eaten felt ready to come back up. One last question. Why? I forced out through clenched teeth. She just shrugged nonchalantly, and God, that made me furious. It wasn't an answer, just some indifferent, careless gesture. Why, Arya? I raised my voice. I didn't seek it out deliberately, Sal. It just happened. In trips like that, you sometimes feel lonely. When Phil suggested we grab dinner together, I was just happy I wouldn't have to spend another dull evening alone. So, loneliness, how sad. And he was nice and attentive to details, and over time, it became clear that we had a lot in common, and we had plenty to talk about. He gave me many compliments, was charming, and a fun conversationalist. And you thought you'd repay his flattery with a quick fling? I interrupted her dreamy ramblings. No, it wasn't like that, she protested. One evening, he knocked on my hotel room door, brought a bottle of wine, and, well, it just happened. Oh, I see, and it filled you with such deep guilt, I commented sarcastically. Those are your words, not mine. And let's not forget how much you said you hated it. Although that didn't stop you from going back to him for 2 whole months, right? But you still haven't answered the question, Arya. If it was so unbearably bad, why? Her face twisted into a grimace, as if she had tasted something sour. I never said I hated that. I said I hated the guilt and self-loathing that always came afterward. What weighed on me was how awful I felt after. So the sex was good? She nodded, sighing submissively. Yes, the sex was amazing. Well, at least we've gotten to the root of why. I smirked bitterly. I'm sorry, Selwyn. I just wanted to be honest with you. No, it's fine. I asked for it. Darling, you know things haven't been right between us for a long time. One thing after another. It all just built up. We've drifted apart and started to feel more like friends than lovers. You must feel it too, just like I do. Our marriage, no matter how wonderful it once was, has lost something. I don't know, maybe the spark, that old closeness. And instead of talking to me about it, you decided, let's see. I furrowed my brow and snapped my fingers. Oh yes, I'll have an affair, right? No, I guess I just got scared. I know it sounds like a lame excuse, but, Sel, believe me, I wanted to talk to you. I really did, but I just didn't know where to start. What I mean is, we don't do anything anymore, Sel. All we have is work and our daily routine. Occasionally we go to friends' parties, but you and I, we don't do anything together anymore. In the evenings, we watch TV, you're on your laptop. And even when you're sitting next to me, we never talk. Her words stung. but at the same time, they rang true. She was right. I felt the same way. There was some truth to what she was saying. Sel, we hardly make love anymore. Arya continued, her voice still filled with sadness. God, we're lucky if it happens once a week. And when it does, it's over in just a few minutes. Just 5 minutes, Sel, and then you turn over and go to sleep, snoring your head off, for God's sake. For you, it's wham, bam, and done, and me, I don't even get a thank you. That was hard to hear. Maybe it was true, but it still hurt. So, with good old Phil from Tisdale, the sex is much better? I asked after a brief pause. It was clear she didn't want to answer that question, but under my piercing gaze, she nodded. Yes, the sex with Phil is good, but it's not as good as it used to be between us, back when we made love. Nothing can compare to that. Although lately, yes, I guess it's been better with him, and he doesn't forget to say thank you. Arya waited a few seconds for my reaction, and when I didn't respond, she added, there's no intimacy between us anymore, Sel. When we're in bed, you're reading, answering texts, or checking emails. We don't cuddle, we don't talk anymore. I don't know what happened, but we've stopped connecting. I know most married couples go through this at some point, but what we have, it feels like a dead end to me. A dead end, Sel, and I'm not putting all the blame on you. I'm just as responsible for where we've both ended up. So, it was easier for you to start an affair? What does that say about me, Arya? Do you really think I'm so unreasonable and out of touch that instead of working on our problems, you chose to betray me and our marriage? No, it wasn't about that at all. I just didn't know how to approach you. How do you tell the person who means the most to you in the world that they're no longer doing anything, or almost anything, for you? Am I really that bad of a lover? I snapped back, my pride wounded. If I was being discarded, I wasn't going to go down without a fight. No, Sel, our sex life was fine, until the last couple of years. But lately, I have to admit, it's almost disappeared. She looked at me with a pained expression. We're still young enough, Sel. You should have needs, desires. I know what I'm talking about because I'm not going to hide it. I have them too. I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me, but I knew I wasn't the only one responsible for the state of our relationship. If you were missing something from me that badly, why didn't you just say so? Why suffer in silence? It was hard to get the words out, but I had to ask. Because I couldn't. And could you? No, you couldn't either. Our sex life had become pitiful. Honestly, I started to wonder if you had found someone else on the side. What? I nearly exploded. My God, woman. Don't you dare tell me you did this out of some sadistic desire for revenge. Jesus Christ, how could you? I've never been with another woman. I know, she sighed. I've come to realize that too. It seems like you just don't care anymore. It's like nothing matters to you, and you don't even think about sex. Arya's words cut like razors. Yes, I knew there was a problem, but damn it. There was work, taking care of the house, the car, our daughter, and of course, the family. My aging parents always had something going on that needed my attention. I didn't know how to start. I tried, Sel. God knows I tried many times, but whenever I tried to open the door for a conversation, you'd roll over and fall asleep, or just avoid it by changing the subject. Sometimes it's hard to talk to you, even after 17 years together, or maybe because of them. Wonderful news, Arya. I shot back sarcastically. But don't expect me to just accept this lame excuse you're using to cover up your betrayal. I'm sorry I didn't meet your high standards as a lover. I hope Phil from Tisdale does a better job. With those final words, I shoved my chair back with a loud scrape, stood up quickly, and grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. I'm going for a walk, I muttered as I slipped my arms into the warm, fleece-lined sleeves and stepped out into the brisk night air. As I passed through the gate, the cool breeze whistled around my upturned collar, which tightly hugged my lowered chin. The empty street was cold, with a lazy but sharp wind cutting through, making me regret my hasty exit from the house. But right now, I needed to be alone. As I trudged up the narrow street, I tried to gather my thoughts, which were in complete disarray at that moment. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would find myself in such a difficult situation. Yes, I admit that lately things hadn't been perfect in our relationship, but is that so unusual? God, in a long marriage, every couple has to navigate through these rough patches. Shrugging my shoulders and stuffing my hands as deep into my pockets as they would go, I kept walking, both along the road and through my thoughts. Both Arya and I worked hard in our respective fields. Arya traveled a lot, working as a quality manager for one of the largest supermarket chains in the country. At least once a week, she had to go on overnight trips, visiting nearby stores in our region. My own job was increasingly demanding, consuming more and more of my time, and naturally, it was exhausting. So for Arya to drop all this on me right at my doorstep, the way she did, was simply incomprehensible. My mind began racing, trying to solve the same nagging question that was drilling into my brain. What do I do now? Divorce? God, I hated that idea. But what I hated even more was the thought of just forgiving and forgetting my wife's betrayal. If we got divorced, we'd have to sell everything. The house, my business, our shared assets, and of course, everyone would know. My mind burned with thoughts of how I'd inevitably become the center of local gossip. There weren't many acceptable options for getting out of the corner Arya had backed me into. As I walked, all those old cliches and sayings kept popping into my head. Never trust a cheater. A leopard never changes its spots. Once a cheater, always a cheater. There was a deep truth to them. How can you trust someone again after they've ripped your heart out? Damn, and it was getting colder and colder. I turned back toward the house. The warmth of home, nothing quite compares to that. By the time I had been wandering around in the cold evening gloom, Arya had cleared the table, washed the dishes, and poured me a brandy. I thought you might need this, she said, gesturing toward the glass sitting on the coffee table. It's freezing out there. Thanks, it's not poisoned, is it? I quipped, smirking as I took off my jacket. She laughed softly, warmly. The musical sound of her laughter still sent a shiver through me. I'd always loved that sound. If I were planning to poison you, do you really think I would have told you about my affair? She smirked, shrugging her shoulders. Arya was sitting on the couch in the living room, her legs tucked beneath her slender, still stunning figure. My wife remained an incredibly attractive woman, and I fully understood why men found her interesting and alluring. Arya had several captivating qualities. Her skin glowed with a soft olive hue, and her beautiful green eyes. Yes, those unique emerald eyes, the captivating secret of her beauty. They drew you in, pulling you into a circle of light, into the deep pools of temptation. Her body was beautiful and slim, maybe with a few voluptuous curves in certain places, but overall, she had a very appealing figure for a mature woman. And Arya's face, those perfectly sculpted, classic features. This was where she truly shined, striking any onlooker with her beauty at first glance. She patted the couch beside her. Come on, Sel, sit down and talk to me. Please. I sat down, grabbing my glass, and for the next few minutes, she sipped her red wine while I nursed my brandy. All right, Arya, I don't know why you decided to destroy our family, I began. But you have. Maybe I'm not the best lover in the world, but tonight you ripped my heart out. For God's sake, I've dedicated my life to you. Setting down her glass, she wiped her damp eyes with the back of her hands. I know that, Sel. I've never doubted your love. And I still love you more than ever. Good Lord, how can you say that? I couldn't hold back anymore. You were just telling me how terrible I was as a lover, and now what? Now you're professing eternal love to me? Yes, it may sound cruel, and you're not a terrible lover, Sel. I'm just trying to say that you and I, we both let things fall apart. God, it's just as much my fault, maybe even more. I'm sorry, I should have talked to you about it. Yeah, that would have been nice. But here we are. I took the last sip of my brandy and set the empty glass down on the table. Tomorrow, during my lunch break, I'm going to find a lawyer, get some advice on the details of separation and divorce. We'll see what the hell we need to do next. I felt Arya's body tense up beside me, and then I heard her sharp intake of breath. Turning my head slightly, I saw her wiping away another tear she hadn't meant to shed. "So that's your answer? Separation?" she said in a trembling voice. "What did you expect?" I shot back. She shrugged vaguely, and once again, I felt a sting of disrespect in that dismissive gesture. "Come on, Arya. We've been together for 17 years. What did you expect?" I pressed for an answer. Her eyes narrowed in a way that didn't feel right as she looked at me again. "Expected? I don't know. I guess I had hopes. Yes, I was hoping for a different outcome. But if this is what you want, well, then that's what we'll do." By the end of her sentence, the coldness in her voice was unmistakable. Arya stood up and took both empty glasses to the kitchen, where she poured herself another serving of Beaujolais. "Do you want more brandy?" her voice called from there. "No, make it a scotch, please." "A double," I replied. A minute later, she returned and sat down in the same spot beside me. Taking a sip of her wine, she thoughtfully twirled the glass in her fingers, watching the red liquid swirl inside. "Sel, you asked me what I expected," she began again. "I was afraid that your reaction would be exactly what it is. Deep down, I hoped for something different, but I'm not an idiot. I knew this would hurt you. I just couldn't think of another way to tell you. Still, I hope this could spark an honest conversation and that we could use it as a door to the future. A better future for both of us." "What?" I frowned, shaking my head in confusion. I still couldn't wrap my head around her logic of improving our lives through her betrayal. "How about we put the separation on hold for a while?" she suggested. Seeing my immediate frown, Arya gave a faint smile. "Come on, do me this favor, just for a little while." She took another nervous sip before continuing. "Listen, I've learned something about myself. Well, maybe about all people. It's pretty simple. Sex is a very, very thrilling experience, and I enjoy it." "What a groundbreaking revelation, Arya," I said, looking at her with a heavy dose of skepticism. "For me, yes, darling. I've never felt this kind of hunger before. My sexual desire is higher now than it was when I was 20. I was hoping that we could find a way to use that to make us both happy." This time, I couldn't think of a clever remark, so we just sat there for a while, staring blankly at each other. "I enjoy sex, Sel," she repeated with emphasis, breaking the silence. "Lucky you," I muttered, annoyed. "I know what I did was wrong, and that you have every right to hate me, but imagine this. Let's say a bomb exploded, and here we are, standing together, hand in hand, in this huge crater. There's no one and nothing around us. From this moment, anything is possible, literally anything." Shaking my head again, I tried to grasp what exactly she was getting at. "Are you saying we should just forget about your affair, pretend it never happened, and move on as if nothing's changed?" "No, Sel, that's not what I mean. Yes, I had an affair, and it was wrong, but it opened the door for this conversation. We can change the way things have been between us lately. We can start fresh, bring back the intimacy, reignite the romance and the passion. This could be the beginning of a different, new life, a renewed you and me." "You've lost me, Arya. If you're suggesting I sit here and accept your betrayal just because it somehow lit your damn spark, hell, next you'll be telling me you learned some new bedroom tricks and I might like them. Am I right?" She winced in frustration. "That's not what I meant, Sel. I was just suggesting we use what's already happened as fuel to build a better life. I don't want what we've had lately. The truth is, I love you and I want to be with you, but I want the old Sel back, the passionate, wild, sex-crazy man I married. If my mind had been foggy before and my thoughts scattered, now, figuratively speaking, it felt like I'd turned into that cartoon character. You know, the one whose legs spin comically in the air, trying to find traction on an icy road. So, it's all my fault, isn't it? And now you're this super modern, truly renewed woman of the new age, huh? The one who's going to lead me straight to sexual nirvana." Sel, this affair really opened my eyes. Before I met Phil, I was just going through the motions, doing my duties, while life, real, vibrant life, passed us by. Now I feel more alive, more awake, and passionate than ever. I'm telling you again, I love you, but I see things differently now. I listened to her, still dark and brooding, unable to share in her strange optimism. Maybe if we could have talked about all this, been more open and honest before your affair, I emphasized. I can't make promises, but maybe we could have fixed things back then. Once again, we sat there, huddled in silence, staring at each other. Then, suddenly, a couple of gears in my brain clicked into place, and a light bulb went off. Oh God, hold on. I gasped. You know what? I just thought of something. Something must have happened, and you got scared that I'd find out about your affair from someone else. I shot her an angry look. That's the only reason you decided to confess, isn't it? Damage control, so to speak. You figured if you told me yourself about the affair, instead of me hearing it from someone else, then I might be more lenient with you. That was your plan, wasn't it? The look of complete denial on her face was almost comical. Sel, that's not true. I'm trying to be honest with you. She protested indignantly. Shaking my head again, I muttered, maybe, but there's no way to prove it. All you're doing here and now is trying to soften the blow and the consequences of your actions, but it's not working for me, damn it. She took a deep breath, bit her lower lip thoughtfully, and shrugged again. I don't know what else to say, Sel. Oh, really? How about starting with, I'm sorry, it was a mistake and it's over now. What do you say if we begin with that? She flinched and recoiled, leaning back on the couch under the force of my sarcastic growl. I've already tried to apologize, and yes, it's over, she mumbled, lowering her eyes. Her attitude started to get on my nerves, and unable to hold back my anger any longer, I snapped, I've had enough. I'm going to bed. Looking visibly nervous, she raised her eyes to me as I stood up. Should I come with you? No, I think it's best if you take the guest room, I replied coldly, preparing to leave. Sel, this doesn't have to be a war, you know? She said, almost to my back. Pausing for a couple of seconds in the doorway of the living room, I nodded and replied, yeah, I know, but right now, war is what's giving me satisfaction. And then I went to bed, alone. In the morning, Arya greeted me as I was getting ready for work, and by the time I came downstairs to the kitchen, breakfast was already made. She herself looked fresh and radiant. Good morning, Selwyn. How did you sleep? She asked. Fine, I replied curtly, digging into my food. I have to give her credit. This morning, my wife made an effort to create a relaxed atmosphere. She chatted nonstop over breakfast, trying to find any chance for a conversation, but I wasn't ready for that. After a restless night spent tossing and turning in bed, I was in no mood to talk. The fire of anger still burned inside me, and I feared that if I let it out, the war between us would reignite. Half an hour later, I left for work, leaving her deep in thought. I had a couple of lawyers I worked with, and I invited one of them to lunch, explaining that I needed his advice on divorce. He showed up with a stack of papers in his briefcase, and we discussed the options. The current laws no longer cared about right or wrong, about who was at fault. Infidelity? Who cares about that anymore? Regardless of the circumstances, everything would be split equally between the ex-spouses. There were no obstacles to selling the house since our daughter no longer lived in this former family nest, which had long lost its magic of love. Arya had her own job, her own income, and a separate pension plan. She was a modern, independent woman. In the event of a divorce, our assets and liabilities would be split 50-50ths. Afterward, it would be decided who was more attached to the house, to certain pieces of furniture or personal belongings. Of course, most of the gifts would remain with Arya. I had bought and given her many over the years for all sorts of occasions and anniversaries. After the lawyer left, I stayed in the office alone, savoring the silence and peace. I used that calming quiet to try to formulate a plan for my next steps. Yes, I could move out, filing for separation. Untangling our financial ties would be fairly straightforward. Later, we could sell the house and split the proceeds between Arya and me. Just like that. So simple. 17 years of hard, dedicated work, all down the drain. At 46 years old, could I really start over? The very thought terrified me. I wasn't the type to hang out in pubs, and I'd never been a regular at nightclubs. All my friends were married, all about my age. How in the world would I even begin again, going on dates at my age? God, the thought didn't fill me with any enthusiasm, let alone excitement. In fact, the longer I thought about it, the more the prospects ahead made me anxious. I stayed at work until around 7 p.m. when my phone rang. It was Aria. "Are you coming home, or are you staying somewhere else tonight?" Her voice dripped with thinly veiled disappointment. "I'm at the office, finishing up some things," I responded. "Should I hold off on dinner?" She grumbled, clearly not pleased, though I could sense a hidden plea in her tone. "No, I'll grab something on the way home," I replied. "Should I stay up and wait for you? I'd like to talk." "Don't worry about it, Aria. Go to bed." "Can I come back to our bed?" she asked. "No, I think it's best if you stay in the guest room until further notice." There was a sharp intake of breath, clearly audible through the phone. "Is that really necessary?" "Necessary? No, probably not. A good idea?" "Yes, I think so." With those final words, I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. Nothing made sense. I mean, you see things like this happen to other people, and as a spectator watching from the sidelines, you think, well, if that were me, I'd do this or that. It's all so clear and simple. But that's only true until you actually have to face making a decision. And that decision, along with the actions that follow, completely changes and shatters your old, familiar, comfortable life. When you live with someone as long as Aria and I have, attachments form, strong like steel cables that are not easily broken. Your lives become tightly intertwined. Our families. Both sets of parents live within 15 minutes of our house. Every holiday had always been a grand family gathering. It was never just one family's event. We were always together. Aria's father and mine played golf together, and they had been best friends for years. Her brother was one of my closest friends. We worked together on restoring an old Velocette motorcycle. It was our little project, something we were both really passionate about. Everything was interconnected, woven with countless personal and emotional ties. And breaking those bonds would be incredibly hard. When I finally got home late that night, the house was dark and showed no signs of life. After undressing, I poured myself a glass of scotch and settled into the living room. Darkness, silence, and a warm, cozy blanket became my companions for a while. It felt so pleasant and comforting to relax in the calming half-light of the living room. As I walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, the door to the guest room opened. There stood Aria, looking as stunning as ever, dressed in a thin, sheer nightgown that left little to the imagination. She whispered, "Hi, honey." I wanted to walk past her, but she reached out, stopping me with her hand. "Sel, please, we can at least be civil with each other. Yes, I messed up and you're angry. I get that, but surely we can act like adults, not like upset children. If being an adult means having affairs, cheating, and lying, then I'd rather stick with my childish behavior. That works just fine for me," I said, pulling away from her fingers. As I left, I half turned and added, "Good night, Aria." "Sweet dreams, Sel," she replied, sadness clinging to every word. The next few days were like a broken record stuck on the same old tune. Aria kept trying to reach out, but the door on my side remained firmly shut. We spent the whole week barely speaking, and the upcoming weekend wasn't likely to be any easier. I was staying late at the office and having dinner somewhere on the way home each time. It wasn't that I feared a confrontation. I just knew that when it happened, it would be a real disaster, and I wasn't sure I wanted that. On Friday evening, I didn't stay late at the office and returned home at my usual time. This surprised Aria, and she looked shocked when she saw me walk through the door. Well, it's nice to see you home at this hour," she smirked. Ignoring her witty comment, I headed to the bedroom to change. When I came back downstairs, Aria had already poured me a glass of whiskey while she was sipping a glass of wine. Handing me the scotch, she asked, I assume you'll be staying for dinner? Yes, that would be nice. While she started cooking, I grabbed my whiskey and disappeared into the home office. It wasn't just mine. We both used it. What I had never done was meddle in Aria's personal life. I simply never felt the need to check up on her. I mean, who does that sort of thing anyway? For all the years we'd been together, I trusted her. We knew each other's passwords and kept them in a shared file in the desk drawer. Now, using her password, I logged into Aria's email and noticed several messages from this friend, Phil. However, there was nothing compromising, just work-related emails. Damn, I logged out, angry at myself for stooping to curiosity. The fact that she had done this to me didn't give me the right to snoop through her personal correspondence. I sent a few emails and a couple of text messages before Aria called me. Dinner's ready. I heard her voice from the kitchen. The food looked as appetizing as always, and she had already poured us both glasses of wine to accompany the chicken. We ate in relative silence, but the tension between us seemed to grow with each bite and every sip of wine. I noticed she wasn't really eating, just pushing the food around her plate. It was clear she was working up to say something. Please, can we talk, Sel? This awful silence is driving me crazy. She finally broke. Yeah, I guess it's about time, I responded, looking up from my plate. I've been trying to give us both some space. I needed time to think through your confession and what it meant for me. I understand, she sighed. Then, looking at me with a grim expression, she asked, so, what conclusions have you come to? I saw a lawyer who specializes in these kinds of cases, I informed her. He helped me fill out the necessary forms. I've listed all our assets and printed the business reports from the last few years. I guess we need to sit down and decide what you're going to do about it. Her expression remained somber as she listened, and when I stopped talking, she just stared at me in response. I see, so, it's divorce. Well, I accept that, she sighed again, stating the obvious. Well, I don't see any other alternatives. So, I'm sorry, I said with a slight shrug. Sel, there are hundreds of alternatives. Counseling, a trial separation, therapy. Do we really have to end it like this? Downing the rest of my wine, I growled. We're ending it like this because you left me no choice. Shall we review your complaints? I'm a lousy lover. I'm nothing compared to your new boyfriend. What else? Oh, right. And our marriage has been falling apart for years, according to your own words. I don't see how any of your suggestions would fix any of that. God, Sel. I never once said you were a bad lover, she protested. I said that we stopped trying to make changes. We don't put any effort into our relationship anymore. But that's something we can still change. It's not too late for us. Did you or did you not say that Phil is a better lover than me? No, damn it, I didn't say that. She snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. What I said was that what I experienced with Phil was new and exciting for me. I said I enjoyed it more than our recent attempts, but only because we've both gotten stuck in a rut. But I'm telling you again, we could get out of that rut. Sounds like a hell of a deep rut, I scoffed. Look, Aria, I don't want to argue, but honestly, I don't care anymore. My proposal is that we end this. There's no point in flogging a dead horse. You're unhappy in our marriage, and I'm certainly not thrilled with your revelations. Aria looked stunned. Are you serious? You don't care? She stared at me angrily. That's exactly why we're in this damn situation. You've lost your passion for life. You're stuck in the routine. Work, home, work again. We never go anywhere. We've even stopped meeting with friends because you don't care. It doesn't matter to you. By the end, she was nearly shouting. We're in this situation because you couldn't keep your damn legs together. I shouted back. Don't even try to put all the blame on me, Aria. You could have given me a chance, talked to me, explained how you felt before. It was your choice and only yours to seek excitement elsewhere. Yes, and I regret it. It was a mistake. I should have been braver and tried to talk to you, she said, her tone softening slightly. At least then we might have had a chance. But I can't get past your infidelity, I repeated for what felt like the 100th time. I've thought about it a lot over the past few days, Aria, And my decision is this. It's just too complicated. If I tried to move past it, to forget your betrayal, it would take months before I could even begin to trust you again. Sel, I told you, it's over, she said wearily. Yes, and when we got married, you made a vow of fidelity to me, but let's be honest. You couldn't keep that promise, so why should I believe you now? I made a mistake, Sel, just one mistake throughout our entire marriage. I believe we can fix this. If you could just open your mind and try to imagine how it could work for us, she insisted. I still love you, just as much as I always have. Now that everything is out in the open between us, we can use this as a tool to make our new life together better, she continued. There are things we haven't even thought about yet. You seem to forget in your reasoning that you cheated, betrayed my trust, lied to me, and played me for a fool. If you did it once, how can I trust you again? My actions were a response to your inaction, she argued, shaking her head. If we had brought back the romance, added some spontaneity, and worked to create special moments of closeness, then Arya perked up. Look, I've laid all my feelings and thoughts bare before you, but what about you? Now we can be completely honest with each other. Come on, Sel, don't tell me you've never lied to me in the past. Of course, I've had to lie. I'm human, and we sometimes lie to protect ourselves. For instance, I lied when I assured you that your butt didn't look big in those new jeans you just bought, or when I said I liked your new hairstyle. Those are the kinds of things I've had to lie about. Yes, I know I'm far from perfect. That's a fact. You could say I'm selfish, and I'd agree with you, because I know it too. And yes, I know I've taken you for granted, but none of that, individually or together, justifies infidelity. Her posture slumped, and she sighed heavily. So, that's it? It's all over. Just because you don't care? Yeah, you could say that. I can't go against my principles, and I don't want to lose my self-respect over this. Arya lowered her gaze to her plate and began poking at the now almost cold food, the conversation dying away like the air between us. The kitchen became a gloomy, claustrophobic space. Self-respect? What the hell does any of this have to do with self-respect? She suddenly exploded, slamming her fork down on the plate with a clatter. Seriously? I shot back. How did you expect me to continue living with the fact that you found yourself another lover? No real man would accept that, and I'm no different. She looked stunned, even raising a hand to her open mouth. My God, do you really? You can't give our marriage a second chance because of your wounded ego, your silly male pride? For heaven's sake, Sel. It happened, but it's in the past. What matters is the future, and it can be whatever we choose to make it. Yes, I made a mistake, but we could both learn from it. I was beyond tired of arguing and going in circles, so I just sat there, silently seething with anger as we hastily finished this disastrous dinner. Afterward, I returned to the office and pulled out all the paperwork. Quietly dumping them on the table, I spoke calmly, but rather coldly. I think you should read these. She looked up and nodded, the disappointment in her face clear. Fine, was all she said. It was well past 10 in the evening when she joined me in the living room. What are we going to tell the family? She asked after a brief pause. If you want me to be honest with them, I will. I don't expect you to lie for me. I'll keep your secret, Arya, I replied. Let's just tell them that we have different visions of the future. I'm not going to ruin your relationship with them. Thank you, she whispered softly, her voice heavy with sadness. And that was it. We spent the next few days together, filling out the remaining paperwork. We decided to sell the house since neither of us was particularly attached to it. On Saturday, we gathered our families and made the announcement. Naturally, it hit them like a bombshell. Our parents were devastated, urging us to seek counseling, try family therapy, anything. Arya stuck to our story about how we had gradually grown apart. Our daughter Andrea was crushed by the news. She rushed over to help me move into my new home. Even though I had a serious conversation with her, she still tried to play the role of mediator. Not knowing the full story, Andrea just wanted her mom and dad to be together again. My firm approach to the separation, which she couldn't understand, drove a small wedge between us. She quickly told me that her mother was heartbroken, that she had fallen into a mild depression. I knew exactly how that felt because I was feeling the same way. It wasn't just her world that had fallen apart. Mine had too. Damn it. I think, since I was her father, Andrea expected me to be strong. She thought I would somehow magically fix everything, just like I always had. Now, I came home from the office to an empty house, cooking for myself. My daily routine was nothing but work and TV. And of course, a pile of dirty dishes. I have to give my friends credit. They tried to pull me out of the dark hole I fell into after the split with Aria. They took me out for golf, fishing trips, and friendly barbecues. Honestly, I didn't really enjoy these outings because it felt like everyone was pitying me. They'd offer advice, tell me not to give up, and say I should just move on. It's easy to say all that, but let me tell you, it's devilishly hard to do. So it still meant coming home every day to an empty house, a cold, empty bed, and that awful silence. A huge part of my life had been painfully cut away with crooked and merciless scissors, leaving an ugly void. Family gatherings were also difficult for me, even though we both received the obligatory invitations. Our families had decided not to take sides or play favorites. Unlike me, Aria managed to pull herself out of her dark hole and move on. Once she started reconnecting with her friends, I could see the changes happening to her. I had to admit, she had never looked better than she did after the divorce. She had a new stylish haircut, and it was clear she was following a new workout routine. Her toned body highlighted the best features of her slim figure, and she looked absolutely stunning from the outside. Despite our separation, Aria always tried to be kind to me. Hugs, conversations, warm greetings, and showing concern. But I kept my pain locked away, deep inside. The gut punch came when she first appeared with her new boyfriend. Aria introduced me to him, and though she seemed a little nervous, overall, she was glowing and happy. I watched with envy as they hugged and held hands. That day, I went home early. My problem was that I just couldn't find a way to start living again. It felt like I was stuck in some dead zone. The wives of my friends tried a couple of times to set me up with someone, and to be honest, I went on a few dates with some women. But there was no spark with any of them. Aria had set the bar way too high. I couldn't help but compare every new woman to my ex-wife, and none of them even came close. I hated that, but over time, I resigned myself to the idea that maybe my one chance at love had already slipped away. On the plus side, I now had plenty of time to focus on work, and as a result, I made some significant strides in that area of my life. Long hours in the office, combined with a lot of effort and multiplied by some seriously hard work, resulted in a solid financial payoff. I bought a new car, and on top of that, a cool motorcycle. Andrea kept visiting me regularly, but overall, she had her own life and friends. It was a real shock when, one day, while having lunch at a small cafe downtown, I saw Aria walk in arm with another man. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to her previous boyfriend. What was his name again? Oh right, Phil. When she noticed me, she walked over with her new companion. I stood up from my table, and we hugged and kissed each other on the cheek. Mind if we join you? She asked. I gestured for them to sit, and when they settled across from me, my ex-wife introduced her companion. Selwyn, this is Tim. We shook hands across the table, and then she began asking about my work, filling me in on news about Andrea. Tim seemed a little uncomfortable as she chatted away, and when he found a moment, he quietly said to her, I think I'll head upstairs. I'll see you after lunch. He leaned in, and they kissed. Take your time, he added as he stood up. Once he was gone, I couldn't resist asking, so what happened to your previous boyfriend? At first, she seemed a bit caught off guard by the question, until she realized who I was talking about. Oh, I see, she responded with a casual smile, waving her hand dismissively. You mean Colin? Well, I still see him. It's nothing serious. And does he know about Tim? I asked sarcastically. She nodded, smirking. Yes, they know about each other. Like I said, it's casual, Sel. No commitments. So, how are you? She countered, changing the subject. Is there anyone special in your life? No, not at the moment, I replied. Sel, you need to get out more, she said, her tone turning serious as she frowned slightly. You can't just stay at home and rot away. Andrea told me she's really worried about you. I'm fine, Arya. I'm happy, I grumbled, though I definitely didn't feel it. She frowned deeply. Liar, I know you better than you think. Be honest. Have you been in any relationship since the divorce? I've dated a few times. But have you had a relationship? She pressed. No, I admitted reluctantly, embarrassed by this fact about my rather sad life. But it seems like you're doing just fine, I added, trying to change the subject. Yeah, once I got over the breakup and the divorce, life has been pretty busy, she grinned. I did a lot of thinking and made a conscious decision not to let the divorce ruin the rest of my life. How's Phil doing? The words slipped out before I could stop myself, and I instantly felt awkward. She smirked again, shrugging. He's doing fine, actually. You said it was over between you two. Are you still seeing him? I asked, surprised. No, Sel, it was definitely over then. I did it because of us, because it's what you wanted. But after we divorced, I started seeing him again. At that time, I needed some light in my life. And Phil, well, he's a nice guy, and I had fun with him. Shocked, I asked, so how many men, for God's sake, are you seeing? Oh, 3 or 4. She waved her hand dismissively again. Good Lord. I was stunned, both by the revelation and how casually she spoke about it. Don't you have any shame? She pursed her lips and shrugged. Why should I be ashamed? I told you I love sex, I enjoy it, and I'm honest with all my men. They all know about each other. 2 of them have even met. And by the way, we've had a couple of evenings together, she winked suggestively, smirking again. I felt the blood drain from my face. You mean to say you're talking about threesomes? Arya pouted slightly, a light smile playing on her lips. Yes, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, she admitted, nearly rolling her eyes with euphoria as she said it. Well, good for you. I'm sure you'll get everything you want, I forced out, though my usual voice had betrayed me this time. God, who was this devilish woman? Or had she always been this way, just pretending to be the modest housewife I used to know? I couldn't wrap my head around it. While I was trying to gather my thoughts, figuring out what else I could possibly say to this familiar stranger, she leaned in closer and spoke in a lower tone. Listen, Sel, if you're interested, we could meet up sometimes. I never stop loving you. Not a day goes by when I don't think about you, and I would be happy to have you back in my life. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Do you really think I'd want to be part of your little harem and settle for a dirty fling when you're not busy? Sorry, Arya, but that's not for me. She pulled a sad face. That's a shame. We were good together, and there's still a place for you in my heart. No, thanks. I'd rather keep my self-respect, I replied. Pfft, that silly male pride again, Arya scoffed. Well, I hope it keeps you warm at night, Sel. She stood up. She leaned over and quickly kissed me on the cheek. It was nice seeing you again, she said before disappearing, leaving behind the familiar scent of her perfume. About 1.5 years later, I received an invitation to her wedding, but I decided that being there and witnessing my ex-wife's triumph would bring me more pain than I could bear. Andrea, of course, gave me all the details about the ceremony. She was very disappointed that I refused to attend. My daughter really wanted me to see her as a bridesmaid. At that time, and even later, I often wondered if I had made the right decision by divorcing Arya. After we separated, my ex-wife seemed to find a second wind and new energy in life. Every time we met on rare occasions, she looked brighter, more energetic, and happier than she ever had before. Her new marriage seemed solid, while I struggled to find the right relationship for myself. Maybe it was the lingering bitterness, or perhaps the lack of trust in other women that came from Arya's betrayal. I'm not sure. It was at her parents' wedding anniversary when I finally met and spoke with Arya's new husband. Strangely enough, he seemed like a decent guy, and we eventually found ourselves at the bar, talking. After a few hefty rounds of whiskey, the atmosphere between us became a bit more relaxed. Tell me, Selwyn, why the hell did you divorce Arya? Her new husband, Trevor, asked me. Staring at him, I tried to figure out if this smartass, knowing all the details, was somehow trying to take a jab at me. At the same time, he could have genuinely been asking because maybe Arya hadn't told him the full story of our conflict. Whatever, to hell with guessing. We divorced because she cheated on me, had sex with another guy while she was away from home. I revealed, thinking this bit of information might shock him. Trevor just furrowed his brow in disbelief, shook his head, and said, "Yeah, and what the hell would you have done in my place?" He shrugged. "I don't know, man, but I'm pretty damn sure I wouldn't have kicked her out. Don't get me wrong, personally, I'm glad you did. Your loss became my gain. I'll be honest with you, women like her don't come around often." Sipping his whiskey, he added, "You asked what I'd have done? Well, if I were in your shoes, I'd have done everything I could to keep Arya." "So, you would have just accepted her betrayal and been able to live with it?" I asked him, stunned. "Yeah, no problem. It was just sex, right? I mean, hell, none of us are perfect, man. In the end, we all make mistakes. So, like I said, it was just sex. Who cares?" When I didn't respond, he smirked. "Buddy, Arya is the most damn sexy woman I've ever been with in my life. I've had a few others before her, but damn, she's incredibly hot. Arya loves sex. Well, you messed up, man. You blew your chance, and now she's my wife. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad you did, but I can't help but feel a little sorry for you. And what about everything else? Sex alone doesn't get you very far. Man, she's amazing. And you know that yourself? Arya's a fantastic cook. She works her ass off, and she keeps a great home. What more could you ask for?" He said with a grin, spreading his hands. "Aren't you worried she'll cheat on you like she did on me?" "Why would I be? Nah, we're completely honest with each other. She told me about her affair when she was married to you, about how it tore both your lives apart. Later, when we first got together, she was pretty open with me. I knew she was seeing other guys too. I think she just had a little midlife crisis. But now, well, now we're happier than pigs in mud." Later, I watched them dancing together. Arya's gorgeous, sensual body pressed against his as they swayed and spun across the dance floor. Trevor was right about how sexy she was, but I had always known that. I left that evening with the decision to end our marriage stinging and squeezing my heart harder than ever before. My ex-wife had moved on, built a new and wonderful life for herself, while I seemed to be stuck, trapped in the quicksand of my own making.